in order to improvise good jazz and be able to really make the changes, you have to be able to think of the notes of any chord instantly. Let's go over to my whiteboard, shall we? It's a good thing to start with formulas, okay? So maybe we should start with the 6 basic triads first, and then all the 4-part chords will be much easier after that. So we have major, minor, diminished, augmented, sus4, and sus2. So what I'm going to do is write down the formulas for each chord. And you might want to take some notes or write this down. We always relate everything to major, a major scale. So if you follow this formula, this is what this chord is compared to major. Okay? So let's use C major scale for an example. So I'm going to write out the notes for a C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And what we do is we give those numbers, okay? I'm going to call, you can call this 1 if you want. I like to call it the root. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's what we're going to build our chords from. So we're going to use C as the root for each chord. So major is root 3, 5. So we can infer that the notes root 3, 5 would be C, E, and G. Make sense? And if some of this is already really super easy for some of you, you can skip forward to the 4-part chords if you're not familiar with 4-part chords. But we will get to the 4-part chords. It's just that if you understand the 3-part chords, the triads first, it makes the 4-part chords so much easier. Minor is root flat 3, 5. So all you would do is take the third and flatten it. So now it would be C, E flat, G. Diminished is root flat 3, flat 5. So what would the notes be then? You guessed it. C, E flat, G flat, because you have to flatten the third and the fifth. And it's right in the name, diminished. Diminished means make as small as possible, which we have. We have minor thirds intervals here. It's as small as we can get for a chord. Augmented would be root 3 sharp 5. Okay? And just like the name augmented sounds, you're augmenting, you're stretching it as far as it'll go. So we have a chord that is built in thirds, in major thirds. That's as far as we can stretch it. So in traditional harmony, okay? Sus4. Sus4 means that you take out the third and put the fourth in instead. So our notes would be C, F, G. That's what a sus4 is, in case you didn't know. Sus2, okay, very popular chord, very 80s chord. Sus2 is literally root 2, 5. So it's very similar to the sus4. You're taking out the third and you're putting the 2 in instead. So it would be C, D, G. listen to a lot of Prince songs, like Purple Rain, that chord is in there all over the place. Like I said, very 80s sound. So then all you'd have to do is plug in different notes for a different key, and you could come up with the notes for any chord of any root. So let's erase this. And we'll put in an F major scale. So now F major scale has one flat, B flat, and if you know how flat keys work, new flat always shows up on the 4th degree, and there it is on the 4th note. So in this case, major would be F, A, C. Minor would be F, A flat, C. Diminished would be F, A flat, C flat. See how this works? Augmented would be F augmented would be F, A, C sharp, because you have to raise that 5th note. An F sus4 would be F, B flat, C, root 4, 5. An F sus2 would be F, G, C. Make sense? Okay. Now, just give me 1 second. I'm going to erase all this stuff, and then we'll start with 4-part chords. Alrighty. Maybe I should have bought a bigger whiteboard, but it'll have to do. So 4-part chords consist of, let's go back to our formula, would consist of some kind of a root, some kind of a third, some kind of a fifth, just like our triad, and then it would be a 7th, okay? And sometimes it's this, root 3, 5, 6. Okay, so if we were to write out the C major scale one more time, we have, if we're going to do this one here, we have C, E, G, B. That would be the 7th. If we're going to make a 6th chord, then we would count to the 6th note. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we would choose A for that chord, because A is the 6th note in the sequence. We're literally just taking every other note most of the time, except for, in this case, like the 6th, or if we're using the 4 for a sus4, or if we're using the 2 for a sus2. And by the way, sus, in case you didn't know, is short for suspended. We're suspending the resolution of the chord by leaving out the 3rd. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go back. I'm going to erase this again one more time. Okay, so now that we've got the nice clear board, what I'm going to do is write out every single 4-part chord that I can think of. And I did just list them just in case I, off the top of my head when I'm in a rush here, forget one. So let's start with major 7, okay? And, by the way, the bonus is that you'll be able to read chord symbols now too, okay? Because I'm going to teach you that as well. Let's give it a root. Let's say it's F. We know we have an F chord. And then the suffix that's after the chord says MA7. So F major 7. So what that chord is saying is here, you know it's an F major chord, because if you were to read a chord symbol like that on paper, you automatically know it's major because there's nothing written after it. If we wanted a F minor chord, then you have to write M, a lowercase m for minor. Capiche? Okay. So what we're saying here now is that we know it's an F major chord, and then you add the major 7th on it. So if you remember back to our triads, we got root 3, 5. That's our major triad. And then we add the 7th. That's the formula for F, for a major 7 chord, okay? What do you think the notes for F major 7 would be? F, A, C, E. Good, okay? You getting this? This is making sense now? If it is, I'm really, really glad I'm helping you out. At least I hope I'm helping you out. The next chord I would say would be a 6 chord. So let's say we have an F6. Okay? Let's see if we can guess what the notes are. It's going to be the same as before, or well, not what the notes are, sorry, it's the formula. Let's write the formula first. So it's root 3, 5, 6. Well, actually, let's go back to a C chord. From now on, let's just use C as the root. It might be a little bit easier to think. So some people call this a C major 6. Some people just say C6 or just a 6 chord. Either way, it's still major. Add the 6th. So we have a major triad here. Add the 6th. Now, 7 chord. So let's say it said C7. I think I'm gonna run out of a little bit of room here if I don't watch it. C7 would be a root 3, 5, flatted 7. So what's the difference between this and the major 7? Well, notice it has a 7 in it, but it's flatted, okay? So when you see a 7 on a chord like that without the MA or some other version, it automatically means the flatted 7th. So when you see 7, that means add the flatted 7th to the chord. And so now C7 would be C, the 3rd note E, 5th note G. Instead of B natural, it would be B flat. Here's one. C minor 7. Okay? So right in the name, C, but it's C minor. So we know it's a C minor triad. So it has to be root, flat 3, 5. And look what popped up here. See this 7? That 7 means flatted 7. So now you know what's in the chord. Root, flat 3, 5, flat 7. Cool? Are you with me so far? Now, I guess the next thing would be to go C minor major 7. Now, maybe you never heard of that chord before, but it's a cool sounding chord. So, like I taught you before, it's a C minor triad, but instead of the flatted 7th on top, it has the major 7th on top. So the natural 7th. So that formula would be root, flat 3, 5, 7. C minor 6. Shouldn't be that hard. It's just like what we did before. We had C minor major 7, so we added the flatted 7th or the major 7th. So this says C minor triad, add the 6th. So it'd be a root, a flat 3, a 5, and a 6. Okay? Now, let's just stop and quickly go through the names of the notes before we go any further, because I think I'm going to have to erase the board before I move on to more chords, because now that we have a 4th note that we add on top of our original triads, the chord base grows exponentially, because you can put on top of any triad, you can put either a 7, a flatted 7th, or a 6. So multiply almost all of those by 3. And we'll get into that you can add some notes to some of them and some of them you can't. Okay? Let's make this C major 7. So we're just all using the root C for every single chord. If it's C major 7, remember it's C, E, G, B. C would be the first note, E was the 3rd, G is the 5th, B is the 7th, okay? C6 chord would be C, E, G, A. If you count up, A is the 6th note. C7, C, E, G, B flat, okay? C minor 7, we have the minor triad plus the flatted 7th. So it'd be C, E flat, not E natural like the first 3 chords, E flat, G, B flat. C minor major 7. So C minor triad with a natural 7th on top. So it'd be C, E flat, G, B natural. C minor 6, C, E flat, G, A. Good so far? Okay. Just give me 1 second and I'll erase the board one more time. And I'm back. Nice clean board. Okay. Let's see. We have some more chords. You might have seen this chord. Minor 7, flat 5. Let's give it the root C. So it's just like the C minor 7 chord we had before, but now it's saying to flat the 5th, okay? So root flat 3, because it's minor. Minor means flat 3. We're going to put the 5th in there, and it has a flatted 7th because it has the 7 there, okay? But because of, in brackets here, we have, in parentheses, we have the flat 5. We have to flat the 5th too. So what we have is a diminished triad, if you remember, with a flatted 7th. That's what a minor 7 flat 5 chord is. So what would the notes be? C, E flat, G flat, B flat. Let me erase that because we got more chords coming. Let me just take a quick drink. I'm getting dry here. Too much talking. Diminished 7. Anyone know what a diminished 7 chord is? Well, this is our Q right here. Usually it's written like this. And it has the diminished triad, root, flat 3, flat 5, and then, okay, we have a double flatted 7th. And you might be thinking, well, let's think about the notes first. So if we're using the root C, C diminished 7th would be C, E flat, G flat, B double flat. Well, why would you use a double flat? Well, it's because it's a fully diminished chord. That means you're taking all four notes and you are literally squishing them all together as close as you can. Now we know enharmonically, I know that's a big word, but enharmonically just means the same note, same pitch, but different note name, okay? So we know that B double flat is the same as A. A would be the sixth, right? So if you spelt it out, C, E flat, G flat, A, it's going to sound the same as B flat. The A and the B flat are going to sound the same. But technically, on paper, we're supposed to think of it as a double flatted seventh, okay? So the C, E flat, G flat, B double flat. B double flat just means you take the B, you flatten it, you flatten it again one more time. You flatten it twice. You flatten it once, it's so good, you flatten it twice, okay? Now, augmented triads. Now this stuff we have to start using some augmented triads, okay? So if we had this, if you saw this written down, C major 7, sharp 5. Curious. So it's a major 7 chord, but with a sharpened fifth. So really what that's saying, it's a major triad, sorry, an augmented triad is what I meant to say. An augmented triad with a major 7. And you have C major 7, but sharp 5. I hope you're really learning a lot. I'm really making me happy here that you're getting this. Okay, so 7. Let's say you saw this 7, C7, sharp 5. I bet you can guess, because remember the 7 means flatted seventh. Okay, so root 3. Sharp 5, but flatted seventh this time. So thusly, C7, sharp 5. So it's just like a regular C7 chord, but you have to sharp the fifth. 7, sus 4. So it's a sus 4 chord. And then remember, it's a C7 sus 4. Sometimes you'll just see some people write C7 sus. Would be root 4, 5. That's the sus, okay? And then the flatted seventh. Root 4, 5, flat 7. So 7 sus 4. And remember we had the sus 2 chords. Well, you could take it even further and do this. If you could say C7 sus 2. Makes sense? That's how I would write it anyway. So that would be root 2, 5, flatted 7. Kind of cool, right? And I think maybe we've got room for one more chord, okay? What if you had C major 7 sus 2? Now, I should mention that these two chords here that I wrote, you don't see those written very often at all. Usually they're mostly in triad form. The sus 2 chords, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't do this. So major 7 sus 2 would be root 2, 5 with a natural 7. Okay, so let's go through and see if we can figure out the names for each of these chords, or the names of the notes for each of these chords. Not the names of the chords. The names of the chords are right here. So C minor 7 flat 5 would be C, E flat, G flat, B flat. C diminished 7. Remember, C, E flat, G flat, B double flat. C major 7 sharp 5. C, E, G sharp, B. C7 sharp 5. C, E, G sharp, B flat. C7 sus 4. C, F, G, B flat. C7 sus 2. C, D, G, B flat. C major 7 sus 2. C, D, G, B. And those would be very interesting sounding chords. I'm not going to demonstrate them for you right now because that's not the scope of this video. I want you to explore these chords, see if you can figure out how to play them. Now, the name of this video is to learn how to spell out any chord and think of the notes. So I'm hoping that what you're learning here is you take the root of the chord and then build the notes from there. What if this instead said C major 7 or C minor 7 flat 5? What if it said G minor 7 flat 5? Okay? Well, if you were to write out a G major scale, and I don't have to do this, I just know this in my head, it would be G, B flat, D flat, F. And take these formulas and see if you can figure out how to play them on your instrument. All right? One more thing, and I'm back again. So all of these chords, except for any chord that has a sixth in it, and this includes the diminished seventh that has the double flatted seventh, even though it sounds the same, it's equal to a sixth, we can still consider it the seventh, okay? All these chords are built in thirds. It can be various degrees of minor thirds, major thirds. For example, let's take a major 7 chord, okay? The distance between the root and the third is a major third. Then the distance between the third and the fifth is a minor third. And then whoops. Shouldn't have used my finger, right? Then we have another major third. It doesn't matter what the root is, it's always going to follow that same structure, okay? So it's another way of understanding these. Maybe go through all the chords that we went through here and see if you can figure out the distances between some of the notes. Like, for example, let's use the diminished seventh one again. Okay, double flatted seventh. That chord is structured in all minor thirds. And it's what we call a
5 minutes later.
That's what you call a symmetrical chord. As far as I know, there's only two symmetrical chords that exist. That's an augmented triad and a diminished seventh four-part chord. Hold on one second. The next step is to practice them on your instrument in every key and be able to start using them in your solos. I just happen to have the perfect video to get you started using chord tones in your solos. Click on the video here, meet me over there, and I'll show you all about using chord tones in your solos. If you're here from that video already, then click on this video and I go even deeper on using a bunch of techniques to play actual jazz lines. I'll see you there.